So if you've ever built a website with WordPress, you know it's very powerful and fairly straightforward to build your site. There's tons of things you can do, but there are some limitations. Those limitations means that you can't necessarily build the site that you want with the functionality you want. You can look for plugins that'll do a lot of these things, but that can get very unwieldy very quickly. So in this video, I want to show you how we can use Advanced Custom Fields, or ACF, which is a plugin that expands all the things you can do with WordPress. We're not just going to leave it there. Elementor 2.0 Pro has just been released today, and with that they've released the beta version of integration for ACF into Elementor Pro 2.0. Now there's lots of acronyms flying around there, but the reality of it means that instead of us having to get in and start messing up with shortcodes and so on that we'd have to do with ACF, we can now use the power of Elementor Pro 2.0 and its dynamic functionality to pull that in and create custom pages. So in this video, I'm going to give you a really brief overview of how you can do that and how we can harness some of the different tools. In later videos, we'll go into a lot more detail and I'll show you how to create truly unique sites using WordPress, ACF, and Elementor Pro. Welcome to WPTuts. I'm Paul C, and this is the channel where I show you how to create beautiful WordPress websites without all the technical jargon. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon to be notified of our weekly new content as soon as it's added to the channel. So let me just give you a really simple scenario. You've got a client that wants a website and you think, yep, WordPress can do all of this for me, and you're probably right. But then they come along and say, I need to be able to upload PDFs and I need to have some other information on there that is outside the bounds of what you think you can do with WordPress. You go into panic mode, you think, how the heck can I do this? Well, ACF is really going to come to the rescue. And now we've got it integrated with Elementor Pro 2.0, it makes the whole process even easier. So the basic version of Advanced Custom Fields is completely free, but there is a Pro version that has some extra tools, some extra functions. If you find you need those, check out the Pro page and take a look at what's on offer there. If you think it's useful, grab yourself a copy of that. This isn't endorsed or sponsored or anything to do with ACF. This is all completely just content that I think you're going to find useful. Now you are going to need Elementor Pro 2.0 for this, so if you don't have that, please use the link in the description below. That'll take you over. It's an affiliate link, gives a small percentage back to the channel, but it allows you to sort of go and purchase that and get yourself all ready to start going. So what I've done is I've got Ocean WP set up as my theme. I've got Elementor and Elementor Pro 2.0 installed, and I've also added in ACF, so I'm good to go. So what I'm going to do is just jump over into the dashboard of WordPress, and I'm going to show you how we can start using this. So we jump over, you can see that I've got everything installed. If we take a look at the top, you can see Advanced Custom Fields is in there. That'll put a new section in. We've got Custom Fields with 3 simple options. We're going to jump over to Custom Fields to start off with. Once we do that, we get a very simple looking interface, which at the moment is pretty much blank. If we looked on the right hand side, you've got some resources, you've got a change log and so on. We're going to ignore all that for now. We're just going to simply click on Add New. So once we do that, that's going to take us into what looks like a pretty complex looking setup. However, don't worry, it isn't as complex as it first looks. We're going to keep it simple in this video, but you can get up to speed with doing quite a lot of things just by keeping it simple. So we've got it broken down into 4 distinct areas. The title for the new field group. Now a field group basically means a group of different options. So they could be text fields, they could be a WYSIWYG field, so you'd have the text editor. It could be a file upload field, an image field, tons of different options in there. So you can choose from that. Next up, we then got the location, which is where we can set a rule up for where these are accessed. In other words, when we create this field group, what section of our site is actually going to have access to it? For this example, we're going to use posts. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a new section in there. We're going to call Advanced Post Options. Doesn't really matter what you call it, just something that makes some relevance to you. So the rules is where we can go through and we can use some simple conditional logic. You can see at the moment it says post type is equal to post. That's fine, we're going to stick with that. We'll leave that on there, but you can see we've got tons of different options for posts, pages, and other. We can then use different kinds of conditional logic and what we wanted to do. So, like I said, we're going to keep this really, really simple. Next up then, we've got the order number and the options to go with it. We're going to leave everything as it is on there. What you can do though is if you want to simplify the interface, the normal, in this example, posts page, you can see we can go through and uncheck all the options we don't want the end user to have access to. So if you are creating something a little bit more bespoke, or you don't want people to have access to things like the permalinks, the content editor, the excerpts and so on, you can disable them at this point. So that's pretty cool. So okay, we've given it a name. Let's go and add some fields in to start off. Come in, click on add a field, and you can see this now opens up some options we can go through. Anything with a little red asterisk for the side of it, we have to put some content in there. So for this first one, we're just going to put in file upload, in brackets PDF. So we're going to make sure that someone can upload a PDF to this. If we click in the next field, you can see it'll automatically pull in the information that we've put in from the field table, put underscores in there and drop everything down to lowercase. You can leave that as is and probably makes sense to do that. Next up, we've got the field type. In other words, what content or what type of field are we going to use with this? You can see things are broken down to basic, content, choice, right the way through. We've even got relational, which is a little bit more advanced for what we're doing at this point. But what we're going to do is we're going to set this to be file. Then you can see we've got field instructions, so you can say instructions for the authors. You can show this information when you're submitting data. So we can put a little helper or pointer in there to make sure that when someone's using our new post page, they're not going to get confused by thinking, what have I got to put in this particular option, this particular field? We've then got 4 or 5 different options for how we want to do things. You can see we can specify it's required. So if you want to make sure that someone always uploads that file with this, you can set that to be yes as a required field. We've then got return value. Now this will change based upon the type of field that we're putting in. Because this is a field type of file, we've got some file related options. So you can see we've got file object, file URL, or file ID. Now we're going to associate this with a button. So I want to make sure that I've got the file URL in there. So that'll make sure that it links through to the location of the file that we're uploading. You can see then we've got library, all, or upload to post. We'll leave this set to all. We'll leave conditional logic set to no. If we did say yes on there, you can see that now opens up another way of creating conditional logic that can control how and when this particular field will be displayed. So when you get into more advanced kind of layouts, you can really get stuck in and do some really cool things in there. We'll set that to no. And what we're going to do is we're going to say close field on there. We'll scroll up and we'll say publish. So we'll just leave it to start off with one field. That's going to be our file upload. So what we're going to do is, because we've set everything up in here, we told it we want this to be associated with the posts section of our site. If we now come out to posts and go to all posts, you'll see in there we've got all the different posts on our page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click to add a new post. I'm going to call this one ACF test. And all we're going to do is scroll down. We'll close some of these options down. I'm not going to worry too much about things like the sort of no normal content area or anything like that. All I'm interested in is the file upload that we've got available. So we're going to click add file. Now we can simply go through and find a PDF or upload a PDF file that we're going to use in this example. So I'm just going to drag something in that I've already downloaded. So I'm sure Pat Flynn will be really appreciative of this little plug because this is one of his free PDF downloads. Okay, so we've done that. We'll say select file and we'll just associate this with uncategorized, so it's not going to be anywhere to worry about. And we'll click on publish. So we've given it a title, we've associated the PDF file that we want with it, and we'll click on publish. So once we've done that, let's just take a look at that page. So I'm going to open that up in a new tab, and you can see there's my template, and there's absolutely nothing on it, no PDF file, nothing. Well, that's because at the moment we haven't set up the template to be able to use this information. And this is where the power of Elementor Pro 2.0 really comes into. So let's just jump back into our dashboard and let's just add a little bit of content into here. So we've got some text in it and an image and so on. And then I'm going to show you how we can harness the power of Elementor Pro 2.0's new template functions. So just dropped in some simple text. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come down and I'm going to just put a featured image on there. Doesn't really matter too much where it is, just use something that's already been uploaded. So we'll choose this image. I will say set featured image, and we'll click on update on there. So we've now done everything we want. And if we take a look at our page, just refresh this back, at least we've actually got some content on there now that's pulling in from our template, but still no PDF file. Jump back onto our dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to come down to Elementor, and we're going to go to My Templates. This is one of those new features that we've got added into the Pro version, which gives us a whole range of new different sections. Now, I've covered this in a lot more detail, and I'll link to that video in the description below. So if you want to see more about this, working with the templates, creating custom pages, go and check that out. I'd recommend it. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to pull in for the single page. So we're going to click on single. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new template. So I'm going to simply come in and say add new. You can see then we're given the option to choose what type of template we're going to work with. Well, this is going to be a single page template or single post template. So I'm going to say this is my ACF template. Put in post template so at least I know where it is. So there we go. We'll create the template. Once we do that, it'll take us into Elementor, open up the template options, and we can choose from a predefined template if we wanted to. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to close that down. And now I've got my basic page set up. I need to do a couple of things though, because the way that Elementor Pro is working at the moment with these is just a little bit quirky. So I'm going to publish this, add my condition to it, which is to basically say, when is this particular template going to be used in our our site structure? Add a condition, and we're going to say in all posts. So we say all posts on there, and we say publish. So that means now that what we do to this particular template, every single post will be displayed using this template. So the little quirk that we have with Elementor is whenever you create a new template, it automatically loads in the basic page layout. And as you can see, we've got the header and footer areas, which we don't actually want. So what I'm going to do is come back out of this, exit to the dashboard. Then I can use my theme to disable those different options. I can come with my post attributes, for example, come into there, and I'm going to say, I'm going to use the Elementor full width. Elementor canvas is probably the better option. And if we update that, jump back into edit with Elementor, we should now find that we've got rid of the header and footer, and we're just left with the plain template area. And we can start now creating the template we're going to use for all our posts. So first thing we're going to do is call up some of the basic things that we've got that are part of our setup, our post. First thing we're going to do is come in and choose some of the new options we got on this. So we've got post, and you can see we've got some new widgets now. We've got post title, excerpt, content, and so on. We're going to pull in the title first of all. Next up, we're going to come down and we're going to choose another option, and we're going to do again post. And from there, we're going to do the post content. Drop that in there if it'll go in for me. Try that again. Okay, there we go, our post content, and you can see us pulling in some basic information. Now, if you find that you don't see this when you're dealing with any kind of dynamic content, what you need to do is come down to the little settings cog in the corner. From there, you can see we've got settings, and at the moment, you can see it's got general settings. If we go to preview settings, you can see preview dynamic content as. We want to use it as a post, but you can see we've got the option of page, product, and so on, depending upon what you've got installed. Once you've done that, you can then go through and choose exactly what post or page you want to call up and use for your demo content. Once you've done that, click apply and preview, and you should then find that after a second or so, this will refresh and show you the actual content. So it means you've got something on the screen to be able to start editing. Okay, so let's come back out of this. Once we've completed that, come back to our widget section. What we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to choose an image, and we're going to drag that up above our title. Now you can see this just shows us the normal image, and we can simply come in and choose our image if we wanted to, but we now have this option at the top that says dynamic. We click on there, you can see we can pull in various different pieces of information. So we've got the post, which is what we're working with at the moment, and we want the featured image. Click on that. Whatever we've got associated with our featured image will now pull in and show up in there. And we've then got the controls for the normal things like the image size. So we're going to set this to be full, for example. You can set the alignment if you've got a smaller version, all the normal things you'd expect to see. But now this is dynamically generated. So if we call up a different post, then a different image will display and different content will display. So there's the basics. We've now created our basic structure, but that hasn't utilized the power of the ACF plugin. But let's do that next. Come back, we're going to choose a button. What we're going to do is drag that button down there, drop it in there, and you can see again we've got things like dynamic for the text and dynamic for the link. Now the text is useful if you wanted to call something up. You wanted to use the button, for example, to take on the name of the file or something like that. We'll leave that with basic text, and we'll say click here to download PDF. Once we've done that, we're going to come down and create the link. So we're going to click on dynamic. If we scroll down to the bottom, you can see we've got ACF field beta. Now this is still in beta, so there may be some bugs or some quirks. So it's one of those things, be careful if you're going to use this on a live site because it may have problems. But hopefully they won't take too long before this is finalized and releases a full release version. Click on that. Once we've done that, we can now go through and choose what field it is we want to use. So we click on this little wrench icon, click on there. You can see it comes up and says we've got settings and we've got the key. Click on there. And anything we've got associated with ACF will now give us the option to use that option in there. So we can say File Upload PDF, click on there. That's now associated that button with the link dynamically. So every time we upload a PDF or every time we upload a file, that will be accessible by clicking on this button. Next thing I'm going to do is just put in a little PDF icon so we know what's going on in there. Click on that, set that to be after, a bit of extra spacing on there. All we do is come up with the style. And we'll just choose a different color. So we'll set this to be red so it stands out nicely. And what we'll do is we'll simply come down to the typography and we'll set that to be a nice heavy font. And we'll also set it to be all uppercase so it stands out and shows exactly what's going on. So click update. So we've now created our link to that PDF that we've got uploaded through ACF. So if we jump back over to our test page, refresh this, you'll see now it picks up the styling that we've created, and there's our button. Now, if you're wondering why we've got this right-hand column, it's because with Ocean WP, we can tell it how we want the blog pages to be styled, whether we want to have this left or right column, various different options. You can easily bypass this if you want to. This is just something that's part of Ocean WP. But you can see we've now got our dynamic information being pulled in, and if we click for our button, you can see there's our new ebook, which, like I say, Pat Flynn will be quite happy with this because it's a nice little bit of free advertising. So jump back in there. You notice when I click on that, it opens up in the same tab, and we can deal with that very easily just by coming back, clicking on content, click on the little link options, and say we want to open in a new window. Update, job done. So there's a very basic introduction to how we can do that. So let's jump back and take a look at some of the other fields and some of the other information we can use inside ACF and how we can pull that in using the new Elementor Pro 2.0 beta features for ACF. Okay, so come back out of this. We'll exit back to our dashboard. We'll just update this to make sure our template is saved, so anything we've done on there is all saved out. And what we're going to do is come back down into custom fields, and we'll open that back up. Click back on the advanced post options, and what we can do now is we can still go in and add some extra fields in there. So let's add another field in. What we're going to do with this one is we're going to call this PDF info. Now, it doesn't really matter what you call this. It's all going to be down to what you're trying to do. Field type, we're going to change that from the normal basic or text area, and we're going to use the WYSIWYG editor so we get the full power of being able to use that nice interface. We can style the text, even embed images and so on. Is this required? It's up to us whether we want to say yes or no. And you can see now we've got different options. We've got default value, appears when creating a new post. The toolbar, whether we want to put the full toolbar in or the basic, let's choose basic on this. If we want to stop people being able to upload media, we could specify no on there. We leave it to yes. And again, you can see we've got the conditional logic option. We don't need to touch anything else underneath because that doesn't apply to this particular field. That applies to every field we associate with this particular post type. I hope that makes sense. Click update. What we can do now is let's jump back over to our posts and let's take a look at our ACF test post. We'll click to edit that. You can see now there's our PDF. We've now got our PDF info. So let's just simply copy this little bit of text and we'll drop that in there. And you can see we've got the basic version, so we don't have all of the tools that are at the top. We've got a simplified, stripped down version. So that's pretty cool. We just click on update. So that's put the content in. The next thing we need to do now is just jump back into Elementor, into my templates. And when we're in there, we can come back in, we can edit with Elementor, and we can now put in the actual placeholder and use the dynamic link to pull that information in. So there's our PDF info. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply grab a text editor area, drop that underneath our PDF button. Dynamic is available to us again, so we can click on there, scroll down to the ACF fields. Once that's done, click on the little wrench icon and simply go in and choose PDF info. Once you've done that, you can see that now pulls in the PDF information. We can click on update on there. So we've got all the controls. So we want to style that text. We can simply come into style. And let's just say for example, we want this to be a little bit different. We want this to stand out a bit. Well, you can do things like you can set different background colors and all those kind of good things that you could do on there. But you can see it's very easy to come in and start adding extra content in to just using the ACF fields. It's very, very easy. This dynamic link makes it so easy. So let's just do one more field. Let's take a look at one final type. Again, one of those things that's probably been a fairly common item you want to put in there, which is an image. So again, let's just come back out of this, exit to our dashboard, update just to make sure, call it my OCD, custom fields, come back into this, and we're going to add one more field in there. So you say add field, and we're going to call this one, let's call this PDF image. Okay, so again, all the normal things. This time we're going to choose an image as our content type. You can see now we've got a whole range of different items on there. Required, the return value is going to be the image object, the URL, the ID, the preview size that you want to work with, the library, conditional logic again. So what we're going to do is, let's go for medium large on there. And we'll say we're good with that. And we'll just simply click on update. Jump back over into our posts again. All posts. Back into ACF, and what we're going to do is we're going to choose to upload a file. So you can see again, it's at the bottom this time. Add our file in there. I'm not too bothered what file type I use. I'll just put something in this. So let's just say we'll go for this particular image. It doesn't really matter too much. Select the image, and you can see it pulls in a preview. We can see quite nice and easy. If we want to edit that, we can edit it. If we want to delete it, we can click on the little X. So pretty cool. Update that. Once that's saved out, come back down to our Elementor templates, and let's put in the placeholder for that. So edit with Elementor. And this is one of those things that this is where the real power of this comes in, is we're not limited to just using certain fields. We can pull this in and pretty much pull in dynamic data from almost anywhere. So let's just keep this really simple and straightforward. Let's go in and add in 2 columns. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this text. We're going to drop that into the right-hand column, and in the left-hand column, we're going to drop in an image, which is going to show up the image that we want. So you can see there's dynamic. Click on that. Down to ACF. You can see it's doing the same thing again. Hit the wrench icon. Come back in PDF image. If we want to place a fallback image in there, we can do that. So we can click on there and say, we'll just use the choose your image, just so we've got something in there. And you can see it pulls the image in. We could go and do anything we want on there. Alignment, we can set the size that's going to be used. All those kinds of things. Whatever you want to do with it, click on update. We just come back over now, refresh our page. There's our graphic. There's our text. There's our button. Looks absolutely terrible at the moment because I've done no real styling to it. But hopefully what you can see is how easy it is to start using ACF alongside Elementor Pro 2.0 and the dynamic data we can pull in from there to create really feature-rich sites that go way beyond what you could do just by using WordPress. But also, because we've now got that link between ACF and Elementor Pro 2.0, it makes the whole process of creating your templates incredibly easy. So I think that really does open the door to creating great websites where you want to expand way beyond what the normal WordPress can do, but you don't necessarily want to pull in plugins all over the place just to be able to get some of the functionality you want. Well, I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we add new content to the channel. If you did enjoy the video and you've got any comments, questions, or feedback on this technique, please pop those in the comments section below. Let me know how you use this, if you use ACF or you use some of the other kind of options or the different plugins that allow you to do the same kind of thing. What's your kind of feedback on this? Do you think it's a great way of working? Do you think this new integration with Elementor Pro 2.0 is the way forward to be able to make this process incredibly easy for pretty much everybody? Well, until next time, take care.